Hi, this is Scott Courier, and this is the second video on the Silverlight Web Part Framework that I'm incorporating into SharePoint 2010. This is at this point a sort of a learning project, but hopefully it'll be useful. This video is going to cover creating these web parts and actually showing you, or at least explaining how these web parts end up making it in the catalog. I have a web part here that actually handles HTML. I really have two base web parts, HTML web parts and Silverlight web parts, and you can see that of course these update as you would expect, and here's the property manager for that. I can do the basic HTML stuff like incorporating YouTube videos, and you can kind of see I have a video here, and this can be kind of dragged around. This is a pure Silverlight web part. jQuery is in the back end, and you can kind of see that this is all functioning. So I sort of introduced that yesterday, and I think that you had a pretty good overview of how this works. A lot of tweaking to do still, so I thought I'd sort of explain how this all works. I'm going to be uploading the XapticAPI, and this project really is all you need to do to include in your Silverlight component, your user control, to create these Silverlight web parts. And these will eventually incorporate the connectivity, that SharePoint 2010 offers. You can see this is fairly straightforward. And again, this hopefully will be on CodePlex soon, and I'd love to get some feedback on improving this code because I know it's very, very rough around the edges at this point. But basically, the API is what you'd expect of a framework to some degree. It's going to be, it sort of has the interfaces and enumerations for the methods and the properties, the type of base controls that you can create. I had to do both Silverlight and HTML because I'm sort of working both sides of the fence these days, and it's just something that I wanted this framework to encapsulate, and as well as just importing and using whatever we can from SharePoint 2010. And the goal, of course, is to create a very cohesive application development environment. And again, I want this to be improved, and hopefully, I can get some feedback on that. So the API is fairly simple. There's some plumbing code here, and this gets added really to your project, and then you just create the web part. And let's see, on the other side of my screen here are the various projects I'm working on. These are mainly the web parts that would live within this framework. So let's open up the news web part. Let's see if I can show you that. I believe it's this web part here, and this web part, for lack of a better description, I call the news web part, which is an image, the title and the description. And let's see. Now, it's fairly straightforward to create this in your project. You inherit user control and the interface. There's MEF going on in the background, although that has to be greatly improved. One of my main goals is to make creating these web parts dead simple. SharePoint 2010 has a wonderful web part framework for HTML, and obviously you can create Silverlight web parts. I really wanted to go beyond that and have really a cohesive framework where the HTML and the Silverlight web parts could sort of work together. The one thing I'm not going to do at this point is incorporate, obviously, SharePoint web parts. This is really my own personal framework, and I believe once this becomes a solution and lives within SharePoint, for me it'll be a lot of fun to kind of use and see how far I can go with creating entire applications, leveraging SharePoint on the back end. So you can see adding a property is fairly straightforward. Eventually this is going to have probably another parameter for the type of property editor I need to use. And then again, we've got some plumbing code based on the interface that's incorporated and that MEF uses to sort of read in these web parts from the server and incorporate them into the catalog. So in this case, it's a fairly simple, straightforward web part. And I'll just go to the main XAML, and you can just see it's defined here, and the code behind is here. Now, you'll notice I'm not using MVVM. Bad me. But at this point, I've got so many threads of this project going on at the same time, and not being really completely steeped into MVVM quite yet. I'm hoping this project will help me along that road. So that's it. And if you want to create web parts for this framework, if you want to use this framework in SharePoint, you're going to have to wait a little bit. I'm going to start popping up the code for the API and some sample web parts, but I'm still kind of in the middle of pulling this together for my own purposes right now. which won't be taking too long, but I also want this to be used properly in SharePoint, and that's going to take a little bit of time, but not too long. I'm actually kind of pulling this out of the mothballs and kind of getting back into it. So hopefully this will be something that'll be very useful to people, and myself included. Okay, that's it. Thanks. Bye.